welcome to Stamp Along with Rubbernecker. This is Preeti. Today we're going to make a cherry blossom tiered card using the new Bloomin Vine stamp set. So I'm starting off with this white cardstock, and I've already gone ahead and pre-selected a couple of flowers from this stamp set. And again, I'm not going for layering or anything like that for this first process. I'm just choosing a few of the florals in different sizes and shapes, and I'm just starting off by stamping with the deepest red of the Color Fuse red palette, or the coral palette actually, and I'm stamping the colors using the darkest color, as I said. And I'm also taking this brown color which is also a Color Fuse ink, and I'm taking the mid-tone, not the darkest but the one before the darkest, and I'm going to use this wavy branchy kind of stamp that is in this Bloomin Vine stamp set, and I'm going to create a few branches here and there to create the branch for the cherry blossom. These flowers have a very I was looking at them the other day and I was like, they look so much like a cherry blossom if I were to use these branches in a different orientation. And that's what the whole idea of this card developed, is to create like a wooded area of a lot of cherry blossoms. So I'm starting off, as I said, I'm just stamping the darkest color, that is, I think is the crimson in that shade, and I'm stamping a few different flowers in different places with different sizes, and also making sure to lay some branches along the way. And oops, I made a mistake there. I actually dipped it in my brown ink instead of red, but that's not a problem because eventually we're going to cover those up with different things that we're going to do as we progress. Now I'm changing into the next color, that is a color under the crimson, and I don't really know what that color is. I think it's called Nectar. Yes, Nectar. So I'm just stamping that now using the next level of color. So I'm just kind of creating an ombre from the darkest to the lightest. I'm not going to do the lightest of the coral shades for this particular step right now. So I'm just, again, as I said, laying these colors, creating branches, and kind of filling up this complete cardstock, white cardstock, with this pattern. Not really a pattern, kind of creating a cluster of cherry blossoms, branches in the wooded area or in the cherry blossom forest, if there is one. Anyway, so now I'm changing the next color. This is the lighter color, not the lightest, but the one before the lightest color. I'm so sorry, I don't know the name, but I will have them all in the description box below, so you will have the names for these colors in there. So I'm just stamping that, the next layer of these flowers with the lighter shades. In the video they almost look very similar color, the first and the second tier, but actually they're not. They kind of the first color is very deep red, and the second color is a little lighter shade. It's more corally orangey color, and the third shade is more on the pinkier hue than the red or coral hue. So but all of these things will not matter much when I do the next step of this card. So again, I'm laying some stamp. I'm also wanting what I'm doing here is I'm laying some lighter branches inside, like on the top half as well, because I want to give it an illusion like there are branches way at the back as well, that not just in the front, because again, if this is a wooded area, you would have layers of trees, not just the one in the front. So now that I'm done stamping, I'm going to ink blend this entire surface, and I've chosen 3 different shades of Distress Oxide ink, and I'm just going to start off with the darkest. Now I could have ink blended using the same colors as the Color Fuse ink, but the Color Fuse ink is a dye ink, and as well as the ink that I've used to stamp as a dye ink, and I was a little worried that I will lose the colors underneath it, that they would all get blended and my flowers would get lost. But because this color, the Distress Oxide ink, is pigment, it actually sits on the surface of my cardstock, so you can really see those flowers that I've stamped underneath it, that we did at the beginning with the Color Fuse ink. And now I'm just blending. So I've taken the red shade and then a little bit of a pink, a raspberry hue in the middle, and then I'm ending it off with this really light peachy pink at the bottom, so that gives an ombre effect. And I'm just going to take some water and flick it, and that kind of creates an oxidation onto the paper and creates some spots, and that kind of looks like light flickering and the bokeh effect happening in the background. Again, you can't see much in the video, but it is there, trust me. And when I did all that ink blending, I lost a few of the branches that I had laid in the shadow area at the beginning, so I'm just going back with the lightest brown shade of the Colorfuse ink, and I'm going to just lay a few branches. And I'm also taking a little darker ink, and I'm doing a second generation stamping to show the branches way in the back of this wooded cherry blossom, wooded forest or woods. And now again, as I said, I'm just doing a second generation stamping, and I'm just laying up a few more branches, and I'm filling up that entire area. Now when I was done with that, I took this white pigment ink. Any white pigment ink would work for this, and I'm going to start stamping these florals, again the different sizes, all over this pattern that we created, or background that we created. And again, I'm not really making sure where I lay it. I'm just laying it all over the place. I just want an illusion that this cherry blossom woods is packed with cherry blossom flowers. And that was the idea. So I'm just going to dry this because pigment ink stays wet for a while, and I needed it to dry for the next step that we're going to do. And I'm going to ink blend again over this, and this time I'm just using the red and the lighter pink or peachy color. I'm just I'm not using the pink color that I used in between, and I'm just going to go over it once more very lightly. And what that's going to do, it's going to tint my white flowers to a lighter shade, and that kind of gives that effect of flowers way at the back and then shadows, and they look so beautiful in real life. Actually, I was just enjoying making this card so much. And then I took this white gouache, and I'm just going to wet it down, and I'm going to splatter that onto this surface, this background that we created. And that is to, usually when cherry blossoms are blooming, sometimes the snow still falling, and it looks so beautiful. And that was the idea of flicking the white gouache on it, is just to create the illusion of snow. So I've set that panel aside to dry, and I'm going to start stamping my sentiment. And the sentiment that I'm using is called, and I think to myself, it's a wonderful world. And I've used the sentiment in the past too, and I'm going to use it once more today. And the reason is because I've just moved and I don't have all my supplies with me, all my different sentiments. This was the only one that I had, and that's the reason I'm using this. But you can use any sentiment in this place. And what I did is I heat set it with with some white embossing powder, and then I die cut it using a smaller rectangular die. And now I'm going to die cut this colored panel using the two different sizes of die, and you can see now I have 3 different layers of this particular stamp set. And here is where I'm building the tier. So off camera, I have gone ahead and stamped these flowers with the layers using the same Colorfuse inks, and I've also die cut them using the coordinating die. So I'm starting off by adhering the largest of the rectangle die cut frame that I created directly onto this white cardstock with some liquid glue. The second layer that I cut, I'm going to use 1 layer of foam adhesive, just 1 layer. So I'm just cutting the foam adhesive down to a thinner strip so I can hide it behind that frame, and then I'm just going to add that in that place. And that is my second tier. So the first tier is one that is flat on the white cardstock. This is the second tier, and the third tier I'm going to double up the foam adhesive. So I'm going to layer the first layer of foam adhesive, and then over that I am going to lay the foam adhesive once more. So what it does, it gives me an extra additional bump from the second layer. If I were to do it if I were to put only one foam tape, that would be flush to the second layer, and I didn't want that. So I wanted it to have that tiered look. So you can see there, you can see three different distinctive layers or tiers on that cardstock. And then I'm going to take this vellum that I stamped the sentiment on, and I'm going to just add a tiny bit of adhesive behind the sentiment just to hide it, and I'm going to place that right in the center of this particular panel. And then now it's time to place these flowers, this cherry blossom flowers. Now I'm going to tuck a few flowers in each of those tiers as well, because I don't want all of them to be just on the topmost tier. I want them to feel like they are there in every tier, you know, like you're looking at the garden or the wooded area from the front view, and you're looking inside and you can see different tiers or different levels of cherry blossoms in that particular wood. So that's the whole idea of creating this card. So I'm just layering, and it takes me a while to figure out the composition or where I want to lay the flowers. So I'm just going to fiddle around, and once I have decided where I want to put them, then I'm just going to glue them down. Some I glued using foam adhesive, and some I just glued directly onto the cardstock just using glues. Again, making sure that some of them are tucked into each of those tiers. And then I just flipped it around and I cut the extra bit. There were not too many of the extra bits, just a few here and there. And I just flipped the cardstock and cut it using my scissors. Now it was time to add a few gemstones. I really I felt like it really needed a little bit of the gemstone in different places just to kind of enhance I want to say the dreamy feel of this card itself. And then I'm just going to lay these gemstones all over the place. And then I've taken a top folding white note card, and I'm going to pop this entire panel onto the white note card using some foam adhesive. I know there's plenty of foam adhesive on this. May not be the right card to send on in the mail, but it's a beautiful card to give it to your friend. Like if you're meeting them, going to someone's house for dinner or something, and you want to take a thank you card, just change the sentiment and you can give it to your hostess. Just deliver it by hand. So that's pretty much it. And then I added a little bit of sparkles on the flowers as well using some Nuvo sparkly pen, and now you can see those different layers and tiers of this particular card. I really like the way it turned out. I hope you enjoyed this video today. Give us a thumbs up if you like this video, subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.